And what's going on, everyone? Hope that you're doing well. And thank you for taking a few minutes out to join me. I wanted to touch base with everyone. I'm back from my latest African adventure, which was, I should say, South Africa. And the question that I'll get a lot of times is, which African country is my favorite African country? And I do not have one. And because I'm able to find so many different things that I love about each country that I've been to. So this month, the month of May, I was in Sierra Leone. I was in South Africa. So they're completely different geographical, as far as South Africa's way down south and Sierra Leone is in West Africa. And then before the month is out, I'll be heading back to Ghana. And it's it's so many different things, so much I could say about the experiences that I've had on the continent in the past 2.5 years. It's hard to believe it's only been 2.5 years since I first stepped foot on the continent of Africa. And I've been to 9 countries, had some of the most amazing experiences, been to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, been to Zanzibar, been to Tanzania, been to Ethiopia, been to all of these places that are oftentimes people oftentimes think of them as, they categorize them as being third world countries. That's a term I don't even use. It's actually a colonized term. And when you look at the history of the term third world, it actually doesn't mean when it was initially created, it does not mean how we use it, meaning the definition was not intended to be how we use it now when we say third world. One of the biggest things from traveling, I realized how uneducated I was, and how uneducated I was from a historical standpoint, and how so many people like me and not like me are completely uneducated as it pertains to the continent of Africa, the history of Africa, the diversity of Africa, the wealth of Africa. In our minds, we're thinking, again, poverty, sickness, corruption, all of these things, witchcraft, all of this stuff. That's the way that we have been told to think about this continent, which most people think of it, or a lot of people consider it a country, when it's a continent with 54 countries. Fascinating people. The thing that sticks out to me the most about every place that I've been has been the people. And one of the things they told me growing up, they said, those Africans don't like you. Those Africans, they don't like you. And now, let me say this. My personal experience, all right? So I have to, let me put that disclaimer in there. My personal experience has been not so, with everyone that I've dealt with on the continent, who live on the continent, has been great. Now, where it's gotten a little tricky is when you've had people who've migrated and then they've come to America and tried to assimilate into the American culture, and it didn't work so well because it's a completely different mindset, cultures. It's just a kind of different ball game. And so I've seen some challenges when you've seen the migration from Africa to America, and some of the responses that you can get, but it's completely different when you're on the continent. And again, then we can't even put everybody in the same category. So we can't even speak in terms of everyone being the same. There's subcultures, their cultures, they're just so many different things. So again, that whole thing about those Africans don't like you, I have to go back and consider the source of my information. I think that's the biggest thing for me. Now, after being and seeing with my own eyes, I have to reevaluate everything that I was ever taught. If your child is in a school where they're still telling them that Christopher Columbus discovered America, then you are doing your child a disservice. Because I don't know how somebody, some dude on a ship can suddenly he discovered something where people already existed. That's right. People already existed in these places, but somehow he discovered it. So it tells you that there's a twisting of the narrative. There is it's like they're creating history of their own. And so we just go with it. Christopher Columbus discovered America. And then you had Magellan, and you had all these great explorers. So you have the Straits of Magellan, and then you have this person and that person who went and conquered the world. And so in your mind, you're thinking that these people are the people that we should respect and honor, but basically they were thieves and murderers and liars and all this other kind of stuff. And so when you start seeing the truth, you start saying, wait a minute now. You mean to tell me this happened and this or that happened? So anyway, reason why I said that I come back with a whole new perspective is this. In America, and I did a long post about this. You can go back you can go back and look at it. This is what South Africa did for me. So one of the reasons why I did not go to South Africa first. So I'll give you the reason why I didn't go to South Africa first, and then I'll give you the reason why I'm so glad I went to South Africa. Reason why I didn't go to South Africa first was, one, because I knew that it was going to be so familiar that I could lose the fact that I was in Africa. So like, especially with a lot of Black people, first thing go to South Africa, because you don't have to do any kind of adaptation. You can just kind of flow, and you just, so for me, I was like, I don't think I want to go to South Africa first. I think I want to go somewhere right in the middle where I'm good. I'm still familiar and I can adapt and I can do what I need to do. So that's why Ghana for me came first. So I did that, and I'm so glad I did, because Ghana changed my life. The reason why all of this whole Africa component of my life came is because of what happened in Ghana. So that's why you'll always see me reference Ghana, even when I talk about Ethiopia or Sierra Leone or Cote d'Ivoire or any other places I've been, because Ghana got it started. So here's what happened in South Africa that literally it's like the cherry on top, if you will. I don't know. I don't even know if it's cherry on top. It's like a puzzle, and and you're putting all of these pieces together, and you're getting pieces of the puzzle in places you don't expect to get pieces of the puzzle. So some of these pieces of the puzzle came in the United States. Some of them came in Brazil. Some of them came obviously in Africa. But what happened in South Africa is really kind of like what brings it together. So growing up, what many were told is that Black people in America, we went through the Middle Passage, and our ancestors were beaten and put on ships and like animals. And this did actually happen, but I'm saying it like this for a reason, and it'll make sense in a second. And what happened to them was so terrible, and what happened to those people was just the worst thing. It was worse than the Holocaust. And so we got here to America, and we were put in slavery and put in chains, and we were stripped of our names, and we were stripped of our cultures and our heritage, and we were stripped of all these different things. And so as a result of that, this is the mess that has been left. This is who we are. But yet we are still resilient, because we are the strongest of the strong. And so everyone ought to understand that we went through this, and nobody else understands. Those Africans, they sold us into slavery, and those Africans, they don't understand. I don't even want to go, because them Africans, they did all of these different things, and those Africans. So I say it like that because what happened in South Africa checked all of that. When I say checked it, meaning it's almost like when you've been taken away from someplace and you've been put in a bubble, and you've been educated by people who really don't want you to know the truth, but they give you enough of it to make you feel like you know something. Or you do find people who break out of the bubble and they teach it, but then they still have an agenda attached to it. So they really don't want you to know all of the story. They want you to know just enough so they can continue with their agenda, whatever that agenda might be. So going to South Africa, obviously, like I said, I had my hesitations because I wasn't trying to go to like another colonized place and be sitting in the lap of colonized luxury, which is beautiful, it's luxurious. Let me just let you know that. But here's what I discovered. The Black South Africans went through the same thing the African Americans went through. The same thing. No different. And so once it clicked, I was like, wait a minute. I've even been conditioned to think that the Black American experience is unique to us. And then when you start learning the history of the slave trade and the African diaspora, and you understand that this stuff was a global industry, which was happening in Central America, Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Jamaica, and obviously these are colonized names that well, some of them are colonized names that came about: Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, Guyana, Suriname. I mean, you could go through all of this and you begin to understand the picture a little bit more. But the reason why South Africa is so interesting, and the reason why I say the same, is because many of the people in South Africa are not indigenous to South Africa. Now, there are some who are indigenous to South Africa, but many of them are not indigenous to South Africa, and they came from other parts of Africa, and they also came from other parts of the Middle East. Some of them were even brought from Elmina slave dungeon in Ghana and Cape Coast slave dungeon in Ghana, and different ports out of Angola, and different places out of Nigeria and Cameroon and Benin and Togo and Sierra Leone. And even though it's known as Liberia now, but even before it was known as Liberia, people were brought from those places on ships to the Cape of Good Hope, the Castle of Good Hope in Cape Town. And so at that point, they were dispersed throughout South Africa. And so the same thing that happened, where you had the people, those who were, now you did have the indigenous tribes who were there. And so what would happen is you had the Dutch, and you had the British. And so what they would do is they would take the women, rape the women, have babies with the women, and guess what they would call these children? They would call them colored. And so they had slave farms, they would whip them, they would beat them, they would castrate them, they would do everything that we heard about that happened to us as African Americans was happening in South Africa. It was happening throughout the continent. But the reason why this is so important is because when I was in South Africa, because I was trying to figure out, well, how does South Africa tie into the whole slave trade and all of that? But when I was in South Africa, I felt eerily familiar. And when I say familiar, I'm looking at the ethnic mix. I'm looking at, the varying complexions. I'm saying this is really very familiar. So when you start diving into the history of apartheid and everything that was happening with that, you start realizing they had their own civil rights movement. America had MLK, South Africa had Mandela, and many others, just like we had many others outside of Martin Luther King, there were many others outside of Nelson Mandela. Then I learned the story of Hector Peterson, and I pulled that up on your Google and research. And I was sitting there saying to myself, the way that we behave, many of us in America, we behave like our history. First of all, they want to teach us the history that we know that happened here in America. So they're not going to teach us South African history. But it's like we act like our history is so superior to everyone else's. But when I was in South Africa, I was like, it's identical. They were marching, they were getting shot and killed. To this day, they have the police brutality and stuff going on. They went through segregation, and obviously that's what was happening when Nelson Mandela was released. So they went through, so you see the same, so much so that I was like, wait a minute. This whole thing, obviously I've thrown out the history books that I've, it's like, throw that mess away and get that mess out of here. But I was sitting there and I just shook my head. I said, wow. I said, they told me don't come here, but they're all here. They told me this place is bad, but I'm not seeing it any different than where I live. They told me it's unsafe. Everybody said, don't go to Joburg. They killing in Joburg. They got the South African variant. They got everything to stay away. Just stay away. And then they put, so you hear this stuff so now what I do is I block that mess out. People, you sure you want to be going all over there during the pandemic? You sure you want to do that? I'm like, I can't really tell y'all what I was thinking in my mind. It just would not be the most professional right now. But I'm thinking to myself, the foolishness is in America. The virus is running crazy in America. The virus is not running crazy in Africa. Every time I was on the continent of Africa and I had to come back into America, I was thinking, y'all don't want to know the words I was thinking. The anxiety would come because I'm saying I'm going back into this foolishness. Now, obviously, I had to come back here because I have a family here, and but I was like, I'm in Zanzibar. Like, wow, time to go. Like, really? Can I stay like another day? Because this mess, I'm going back into this mess in America. I'm in Cote d'Ivoire. I'm like, really? This time is over? Yeah. Come on back. Got to go on back into America. And so the way that, like, we've been conditioned, because I don't even hear silly stuff on social media. Well, if it's so bad in America, yeah, you need to go to Africa. And I'm thinking to myself, now, this is an ignorant person who opened their mouth, because I'm saying, well, Africa, one, is a very big place. Two, Africa has has thousands of cultures and different languages. Three, depending on where you go in Africa, it will put America to shame. So you go through, you're hearing all of this stuff, and that's why I tell people all the time, you got to go see for yourself. You got to go formulate things. So now, when some expert wants to come along, who has not been anywhere, just read a bunch of books, and not that you got to go everywhere to mean that you know, not meaning that if you haven't been anywhere, it doesn't mean that you're not educated. What I'm saying is that we go to these people these gurus or whatever, and they haven't been anywhere. They haven't seen anything. And so sometimes when you go, you can formulate your own opinion, and you can actually sit down and process it as you're breathing the air. And sometimes you go, like like I went to this place, it was the Dutch, it's like a Dutch temple, a temple to the Dutch. And then I realized how crazy the Dutch were. I was like, dang, the Dutch were just as crazy as the British. And learned about how they, the games they played, and the Afrikaans, and how they imposed their languages on the people. And I'm saying, this really sounds like some craziness out of America. And so, but the temple actually was very beautiful, museum temple. And so now when I go to Pennsylvania and I see the Amish and I see the Dutch Pennsylvania, it all clicks, because that's what you saw in South Africa. So now I say, I'm not going to the Amish market anymore. I'm not buying their stuff anymore, because now I understand, how that whole thing went down. I was like, this is really wild, because what was happening in South Africa was also happening in what we know as America. But the other thing that happens is, and this is why I'm taking people, this is why I'm excited about what's about to happen this summer in Ghana, because and even subsequently in the fall, and as we move into the winter, and then we move into 2022, I'm excited about it, because there's a perspective that it's like, as people go, when they see these different things, it's like anytime I'm on a tour, it's like people start seeing things for themselves, and it's like, that's the whole thing. You see for yourself. You got it. You see for yourself. The other thing that I've observed is how and this is really sad. So, like, this wave of so-called, they call them the so-called Dutch in South Africa, and I'm like the so-called African Americans. So they complain about America. They complain it's bad in America. I'm ready to leave America, and I'm bad in America. It's bad in America. So these jokers run out of America, and they'll go anywhere. They'll go down south. They'll go to Mexico. They go into the DR. They go to Africa, wherever they want to go. So then when they get to wherever they go, they start complaining again. It's bad here. It's bad. Oh, it's bad. Oh, it's bad. And then they run right back to America, and they still complain. Oh, it's bad. It's bad. It's bad. Those people need to find a whole new planet to go to and just leave, for real, because they'll never be satisfied. They're always going to be complaining. There's always going to be something wrong wherever they go. So just go to the moon and complain about how dry it is on the moon. But a lot of times what I've observed, and this is what I'm seeing in a lot of different places with the so-called African Americans who are trying to escape and complaining about America, they really are not concerned about the people, the indigenous people in the new place that they're going to. So what they do is they try to carve out these little communities. And when they carve out these little communities, they're basically doing the same thing that happened to them in America. So just like the colonizer came in, carved out its own little community and put up walls, because when you see the walls, you see the walls all over Joburg, you see the walls in Ghana, you see the walls in Ivory Coast, you see the walls in Sierra Leone. That's a colonizer thing with those walls. As in the same ones that talk about we build bridges, not walls, a straight line out there, you know what. So so when you see these walls everywhere, and so I'm realizing, like with the so-called African Americans, what they do is they go over to these places in Africa or wherever, and they erect these communities, and they basically tell the locals stay out, and they raise the price to the point where the locals can't afford to do it, and they have no interest in being or commingling with the locals. They didn't want anything to do with them, because they're now trying to carve out their own thing, and they hide behind culture. Well, I want to have my own culture, and I want to do XYZ, but hold on, this is these people's land. This is not your land. And so you're coming back and you're doing the same thing the colonizer did in this land or wherever they go, and basically try to say, we want our land, you stay out, without realizing that's what we're doing, because we've been trained to do it subconsciously, but yet we cry like we're victims, and we got traumas, and we got this going on, and we got that going on. And in many instances, what I'm starting to see, and I'm a brother born in South Carolina, raised in DC, all that, can't take my black card, been through too much. I'm almost 50 years old. You can try to take it, can't get it anyway. So I'll get it from somewhere else. So you sit back and you hear this stuff, and I'm saying to myself, some of these people are just spoiled. That's the bottom line. They're entitled, they're spoiled, they feel as though they are owed something. And in one sense, yes, because of what was stolen and all the repercussions that came from that. But in another sense, no, because you aren't the only person that's had something stolen from you. So like, in the mindset that a lot of so-called African Americans will go back to Africa with is as if Africa, meaning these people who are here today, owe them something. But the reality is they went through the same things. So it wasn't like when the people were sold into slavery, like the people who were left behind were living in the lap of luxury. Obviously, we can see that wasn't the case. We can go anywhere and see that that didn't happen quite like that. The lap of luxury did not happen for them. And the truth of the matter is that many of us who are the so-called African Americans have had access to education, financial resources, even the bootleg education that we got, even the Christopher Columbus bootleg education. We've had access to it. We have access to the financial resources. We have access to so many different things that other people in other parts of the world don't have access to, as far as understanding the global economic system. That's what I'm talking about. Many of us who are the so-called African Americans, and I'm saying this with like kind of tongue in cheek at the same time. We have, when I go back and I think about it, we benefit from the poverty of much of the rest of the world, whether it be China, whether it be Mexico, whether it be different parts of Africa, whether it be different parts, wherever production is happening, we benefit from it. The cell phones, the stuff that goes in our cell phones, and the stuff that we have happening. There are people who are actually enslaved, in a sense, who are digging in these mines and getting this stuff out, and that's what's happening. That is what is going on. But we benefit from it, but yet we complain. Many of us, not all of us, many of us complain. This is bad. That's bad. Trump this, Trump that, Trump gone, Trump this, that, and the other, this place, this country. And the reality is, yes, it is bad in many parts, but not everywhere. And so what I had to start doing, I said to myself, now how am I going to deal with these realities? I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I educate myself and I educate those who want to know. And then the other thing that I said was, I'm going to also create opportunities and experiences for people who want to be able to see another side of this, and not be complaining and not be whining. And what are we going to do to fix it? And so I said, I'm going to be a part of the solution. So everywhere I go, whether it's South Africa, whether it's Tanzania, or Ethiopia, or Benin or Togo, or wherever, what I'm going to do is create opportunities and solutions. In Sierra Leone, what I'm looking to do is to go back to Sierra Leone, had an opportunity to speak with the mayor of Freetown extensively and talk about some of the different opportunities that can be created, because I'm a Sierra Leonean citizen. So I'm not going to just get the citizenship, brag about it, and then forget the country that I was extended the opportunity to share a dual citizenship with. So I'm going to go back and create opportunities, not from the standpoint of a Western mindset and fixing these, because the people don't need fixing. All they need is access to the same things that I've had access to. So if we can create those, or when we create those things, that's another contribution to the continent. Something that I look forward to doing in Ghana, because I believe Ghana is, again, Ghana's like the perfect balance of everything. Because if you want that 5-star, straight up 5-star, sexy kind of experience, first, you can get that right there in Accra. But at the same time, if you're looking for the traditional vibe, you can get that right there in Accra. You can get it really right there in the same city, but you can go to Kumasi, you can go to Cape Coast, you can go to Tema. You have a lot of different places that you can go, up to Tamale. Ghana has so many different things to offer that it's really fascinating when you start thinking about it. But anyway, with that said, what I've learned is that if you want to be successful, and that's what South Africa plays this whole part, if you want to be successful in really understanding the continent, the number one thing for me is being adaptable. I don't go, and this is something I've noticed a lot of people have trouble with, is being adaptable. Sierra Leone is very, very different from South Africa, but I love them equally because I was able to adapt, and I understood that it was not their job to adapt to me. Whereas, again, many people in their thinking, they're thinking, well, why don't they adapt to us? Well, why should they adapt to us? Who are we that they should adapt to us? Well, if they want our tourism dollars, now granted, if you're thinking, looking at it from a business perspective, yes, you want to be wise and recognize who your target audience is and make sure that you create experiences that's going to reach your target audience. But for me, what I've realized is when I was climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, I could not ask the mountain to adapt to me. I had to adapt to each climate that I was going, that I was encountering as I was ascending, as I was climbing to the top of the mountain. I couldn't say, well, it's cold up here, so mountain, get warm. It's like I have to adapt. And so if you're someone who's willing to adapt to circumstances and situations and all of that, then you'll have a great time. If you're someone who's expecting the world to move because you're there, then it's probably best that you don't go. So, and then probably best you don't even leave the house, because that's just going to always create a problem. Well, I've covered all of this. Yeah. Okay. So so what's happening now this summer, we got tours coming up, but another part of this is to be able to help people understand that there are so many opportunities on the continent that if we begin to start opening our minds to the truth, then we'll be in a much better position. But if we don't open our minds and eyes and ears and all of this to the truth, then what happens is we basically stay on the American plantation, and that's by design. It's by design that for those who are on the grind, that all you do, this is the design, this is what you realize, and it's global, that you make just enough to give you just enough comfort to where you don't want to disrupt it at all. You're like, I got my flat screen, I got whatever it is, you got whatever your favorite beverages are, you got your food, you got your man cave. I'm good. I get up, I do my same routine every day. I might have gone down to the Bahamas a couple times, down to Miami, and that's it. And that routine. And so learning and really understanding what happened, those don't take priority because we've been trained. Obviously, we think everybody else is different from us. They think their story is different when our stories are eerily similar. So for me, obviously buying a condo in Ghana, I'm definitely going to get something in South Africa and trying to decide which country in the East. I haven't been to Kenya yet, so I need to check out Kenya before I make a final decision on which spot in the East I'm going to buy a property. But the biggest thing for me is this: when you see for yourself, there's nothing anybody can take from you. When you see for yourself, they can try to tell you all of these other things, and you say, whatever, I got this, because you've seen for yourself. The this was deep. This was one that was deep as far as a difference in South Africa. So, so when you go to the continent of Africa, and that's why I tell people about be careful with these missions trips and all of this, because a lot of people think they're taking something over there that they need that they already have. So they already got Jesus in Africa. All right, just so you know, before you spend your money, they already got Jesus in Africa. All right, so now, so what you'll see, however, is I've been in the West, I've been in the East, I've been in the South. So the East is a bit more Islamic, as far as like Zanzibar, and then you have a mix right there in Ethiopia, Islam, Coptic Christians, Orthodox Christians. Mainland Tanzania, you're going to get a mix of mainland. You're going to get a mix of Christianity, Catholicism, and Islam. Sierra Leone, ironically, has it's like more Islam. It's felt very Zanzibarish, whereas Ghana is kind of like more Catholic, Protestant, same kind of vibe in Togo and Benin, and Ivory Coast as well, just kind of that same kind of vibe. So, but what you see in these different places, everywhere you go, you see like this, and I preface it. I always say this fake white Jesus image, because we ought to know by now that like Jesus wasn't white, So I don't care what Megyn Kelly said, and Florida Evans, So. And some people will say, well, what does it matter and all of that? And so anyway, whenever you got a whole pack of brown people and you got this fake white savior floating around there, Houston or wherever, Tanzania, Ivory Coast, there's a problem. I was in Ivory Coast and I saw this statue, this fake white Jesus, and I'm watching all these brown people go and like worship it and stuff. And of course I've seen it in America. We've been to the churches with the fans and the dude looking up and all of that and going through that whole deal. In Ethiopia, it broke my heart when I went into the Coptic churches, some of the oldest churches in the world, and they imported this fake white Jesus image, and the people were bowing down to it and kissing. I said, what in the world is going on? But here's what really warmed my heart in South Africa. That's right, warm my heart. This what did it. I was expecting to see more of that in South Africa. It is there. It's there. But what I saw in South Africa was so cool. Two things was so cool in South Africa. Not that it made it better than other parts of Africa, but this was just something that really made it unique. Somehow, there's this group of traditional, I guess more kind of like Orthodox church, I guess, whatever, in South Africa, and they won't do the fake white Jesus thing at all. They won't touch the fake white Jesus. So they actually worship outside, and so they worship near a river, a tree. Either it's a river's nearby or a tree is nearby, and they're Christians, so but they will not get down with that fake white Jesus thing, and they would not. And another thing that's really powerful in South Africa is that many of them have held on to their traditional names. So y'all know how it is in America. We got colonized names up and down the wazoo. Like Jay. Jay is probably like one of the most colonized European names you're gonna find. But they all so you would see these different names, and they're working in the grocery stores and they're everywhere. And so what we did, anytime we would go, so tell me, what does your name mean? And everyone knew what their name meant, and they could tell you. Went to the spa, and the people doing the massages and all of that. So so tell me what your name. One was Joy. and the other one was patience or something. That was really cool to be able to see that aspect of someone holding on to that. The Dutch and the British didn't get that part. Because now in other parts of Africa, you'll see, just like in America, you'll see these names, and you're like, your name is what? You look, and they'll give you this name, Jane. Like, okay. But what they did in other parts of Africa was imposed. They would call it giving them their Christian name. But what if they didn't want to be Christian? So you give them a Christian name, but what if they didn't want it? So it was like this imposing of things on people. You start seeing this stuff, and it's like, y'all imposing this stuff, y'all pushing this stuff on people in ways that and nobody's questioning this. Like nobody's questioning this to say, obviously not. And I got to go back in my mind and say, well, a lot of things I didn't question for most of my life because I just thought that was the way it was. That's how it went down. That's how it's supposed to be. But when you start seeing the contradictions and hypocrisies and the thefts and the stuff I saw that was left behind in Benin and Togo, and how the French did that whole deal, and then you go to you see in Ivory Coast, and you see what the French did. You see the influence of these different colonizing entities, and you say to yourself, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. This is not acceptable, especially for people who consider themselves educated and waking up. It can't be acceptable. It can't. Unless we're fooling ourselves, that's now that happens too. But it's like, this is not acceptable, and we have to do something about it. We have to say something about it. We have to create something in order for people to realize that, hey, especially now, for the first time in the history we're aware of, we have access to the internet. We have access to all these different things, and we can educate ourselves. The one thing I would say to so-called African Americans is understanding that we are not the only ones. And there's a level of empathy, and we can't say Black Lives Matter and forget those 1 point some odd billion Black lives in Africa, and thinking that the only Black lives are in America, but you got another 100 million Black lives in Brazil, and another 7 million Black lives in the UK and France and other places. And so it's like, well, don't say the term Black Lives Matter. If you say Black American lives matter, if that's all that matters to you, because when you understand it's a global problem. That's why when everything happened with George Floyd, and you saw the outrage happening all over the world, it's because this foolishness is happening all over the world. It's happening all over the world. And that's why you saw it erupt the way that it did. People trying to figure, oh, them people love us over there. No, they're dealing with the same foolishness that's being dealt with here. And so I was looking, and I'm kind of dialing back here for a second. I was looking at one of the Orthodox churches that were worshiping in South Africa. And I thought about how people started tripping in America when COVID happened, and they couldn't go and have the luxuries and have the big screens and have the perfect sounding sound, and couldn't have all of the trimmings of what they were used to, and how their cheese got moved all over the place, and how they literally started tripping like it was a drug addiction when that happened. And so they had to adapt. And I was looking at the people and how happy they were in the simplicity of worshiping by a tree, worshiping by a river. I'm watching even in the Coptic churches in Ethiopia, the simplicity. They didn't have all of these electronics and lights and techno lights and all this kind of stuff flying around and all this kind of stuff going on. And I'm looking at, now let me dive back to South Africa, but I'm watching them, and they're doing their dances and they're doing their thing, and I'm saying, wow, saying these people understand something. I said, because for so many people in America, when that cheese got moved, you found out that they were really into the lights, camera, action. And so now what people are really waiting to get back, what we call normal, they're waiting to get back to the same routine, the same flow of whatever they were doing that had them doing whatever they were doing that's going to keep them right back in the cycle. And I'll tell you like this, one of the things I realized throughout this whole COVID-19 deal is how easily manipulated people are. So people can be manipulated like it's nothing. people, you say this and then they confuse them, and then it's all these mixed messages, all this confusion happening, all this stuff going on, people all over the place, this, that, and the other, don't know what's going on from day to day. And then when you step outside of this particular bubble and you look back at it, say, wow, when you watch news, I'm laying in the bed in Sierra Leone and I'm watching the news and I'm like, wow, them Americans, they got some crazy stuff going on over there. I'm in Ghana when the insurrection happened up at the U.S. Capitol, and my phone started blowing up. I was like, wow. I said, man, that's pretty deep right there. But all these mixed messages coming. And so what I learned in all of that is to stay steady and to be wise, not to dismiss what's happening, not to downplay it or ignore it or whatever, but not to let it dictate my life. And I said I was not going to be in the house for a year. This is my personal decision. I was not going to be in the house for a year because some government official told me to sit in the house for a year who's sending mixed messages, and you can't even believe half of them anyway. So I'm just going to sit in the house because, there's clearly, now if you got bullets flying everywhere, yeah, okay, let me sit in the house. But you still got to live. And so I said, well, for me, I'm going to live. I'm going to be smart. I'm going to put on my mask. I don't have any problem with the mask. I don't have any problem with any of that. Hey, cool. Some people, they need to put on the mask so all that halitosis they were spreading around so people could live in peace. So some people needed to put a mask on, not just for the virus, but so they could feel and sense what their situation was like. And they could say, I think I might need to go to the dentist and go get your teeth clean and, stop brushing your tongue. So some people, the mask was a good thing, and some people need to keep wearing the mask for reasons outside of the virus. But I was determined at that point that I was not going to, I was still going to live. And that's what I determined in November 2020. And so here it is going into June 2021, been to the continent 5 times. Again, maximize my immune system, sanitize my hands, did all those different things. And so people ask me, so how is COVID over in Africa? Well, they didn't deal with it nearly as much as when it came to America. So, but again, the mindset is, it must be bad over there. No, it was not nearly as bad as what was dealt with the poor leadership in America during that time frame. So anyway, that's a whole different kind of conversation. I'm glad to be going back to Ghana, and gonna have a great time. I can't wait to share more. It's so much. I could write 20 books. I got documentaries. I got to do a documentary off of each country. Darren and Destiny have more books coming out. These are the 3 that are available that you hop on Amazon, you can get some Darren and Destiny goodness. You got Tanzania, the safari. You got Ghana and Zanzibar's getting ready to release Kilimanjaro also. That's coming, as well as Ethiopia and Benin and Togo. We're going to do one for Sierra Leone. Guess who's going to get their dual citizenship? Darren and Destiny. You better believe it. All right. So anyway, that's just a little bit of my thoughts on my most recent journey to South Africa. Look forward to going back to South Africa. I got something. I got something real cool about South Africa I want to share, but I can't share it just yet. Shout out to the Blantons. They did a great job with Real South Africa. They did an excellent job, phenomenal job, and made that experience one for the books. So anyway, all right, everybody, enjoy your evening. Talk to you soon.